It was a crisp Tuesday morning, and I was deep in a virtual meeting with our Dallas Power Grid team, my camera off, coffee steaming, and the house wrapped in that rare suburban quiet. My wife, Laura, was home from her judo coaching gig, and our daughter, Mia, was already at school. Everything felt calm until the doorbell shattered the peace. One ring, then another, followed by a heavy knock that sounded like someone meant business. I tugged off my headset, checked the doorbell camera, and saw two men in khakis and tactical vests, one sporting sunglasses like he was auditioning for a cop show. The patch on their vest read, HOA Compliance Unit. I unmuted my mic long enough to excuse myself and headed downstairs. Laura beat me to the door. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice steady but sharp, arms crossed in that way that warned trouble was coming. "We're with the HOA," the taller one said, his badge gleaming. "Routine property inspection." Laura didn't budge. "This house isn't under your HOA. Never has been. Check your records." The second guy, heavy-set with a crew cut, smirked. "Ma'am, all properties in this area fall under our extended jurisdiction. We're authorized to check." Laura's eyes narrowed. "You're not authorized to step foot here. This land's been in Jack's family for decades before your McMansion sprouted up. Leave. Now." The tall one, still grinning, took a step forward and pushed open our gate. "Big mistake." He crossed onto our porch, hand grazing Laura's arm as he said, "We'll be quick, ma'am." In a flash, Laura pivoted, grabbed his wrist, and flipped him onto the concrete, his arm pinned behind him as she knelt on his back. The move was clean, practiced Laura's years as a judo black belt at work. The second guy froze. "Ma'am, you can't," she cut him off. "Touch me, and you're next." She pulled out her phone, dialed 911, and spoke calmly. "This is Laura Bennett. I need police at my address. A man tried to force entry and touch me. I've detained him." I stepped outside, headset dangling around my neck. "Everything okay?" I asked. Laura didn't look up. "This guy says he's HOA. He touched me. I handled it." I glanced at the guy groaning under her knee. "Hope you've got good insurance, pal." The second guy backed away, hands up. "We're just doing our job." "No," I said coldly. "You're trespassing and threatening my wife." Big mistake. Sirens wailed in the distance, and I knew this was just the start. The cop who arrived wasn't buying the HOA's story. The pinned guy, who we learned was named Carl, ranted about being an officer and demanded Laura's arrest. The cop shook his head. "You're not an officer. You're not even licensed security. And you touched her first." Laura showed the doorbell footage, and I handed over our property deed, which clearly showed our land was HOA-free. The officer told Carl to stay away and advised us to file a complaint. Carl muttered about escalating to the board, and I felt a knot in my gut. This wasn't over. That night, I dug through old emails and letters. Nothing mentioned HOA jurisdiction because there was none. But the next morning, a thick envelope appeared in our mailbox, no stamp, just hand-delivered. It was a notice of violation, listing nonsense like unapproved play equipment, Mia's swing set, and improper trash bin storage. They demanded hundreds in fines. Laura laughed, but then we found a flyer inside with grainy photos of Mia playing in our yard, clearly taken from the street. My blood ran cold. Someone was watching our kid. Mia came home from school quiet, barely touching her dinner. Later, she whispered, "Dad, kids said our house is trashy and Mom got arrested." My heart sank. "Who said that?" She shrugged. "Jenny's mom. She's on some committee." I kissed her forehead. "Your mom's a hero, Mia. This house is ours, and we're keeping it that way." I didn't sleep. I filed a public records request for county maps and contacted a lawyer, Diane, through a veterans network. She perked up when I mentioned forged documents and child surveillance. 2 days later, an anonymous email arrived. "They're trying to annex your house. Check the HOA's new policy." Attached was a PDF of internal HOA documents, including a plan to claim assumed consent for non-HOA properties. One name stood out, Ellen P., a quiet woman I'd seen at a neighborhood picnic. "Our mole." I replied, and within hours, she responded, "Check behind the mailboxes tomorrow." Sure enough, I found an envelope with memos, emails, and a forged voluntary enrollment form with my name scrawled on it dated weeks ago, though I'd never seen it. Ellen's notes explained the scam: vague letters, forged signatures, and fines until owners gave in. They'd done it to others. I went door to door, talking to neighbors. An elderly couple, the Wilsons, admitted they'd signed what they thought was zoning paperwork, only to face fines for their porch flag. Another neighbor, Tom, a single dad, showed me a letter demanding he repaint his garage door. I promised we'd fight. Diane called the forged form textbook fraud and prepared a cease and desist. But the HOA didn't stop. Carl parked across the street in a marked SUV, watching. Our trash bins were trashed, a dead rat stuffed in one. Then a Photoshop flyer of our house labeled Neighborhood Nuisance appeared on our gate. At Mia's school, a PTA mom shared it online, smearing us. Mia came home in tears. I'd had enough. I marched out, filmed Carl, and demanded his credentials. His smirk faded when I mentioned the photos of Mia and our lawyer. He drove off. I filed a restraining order. Then a crew showed up with chainsaws, claiming a compliance clearing order with another forged signature. I photographed it and sent them packing. That night, I emailed the HOA board with every piece of evidence and a subject line, legal action pending. Ellen replied, asking to meet at the dog park. She handed me a flash drive with original HOA filesmails, forged templates, and logs tying it all to board President Nancy Holt and Carl. They crossed a line with your kid, she said. I'm done. Diane filed for injunctive relief, and the DA opened a fraud and conspiracy investigation. The HOA's letters stopped, but then came a CPS tip claiming we were abusive. The caseworker saw through it, furious at the misuse of the system. In court, Diane was relentless, presenting the forged form, Ellen's drive, and neighbor testimonies. The Wilsons spoke of their fines, Tom of his threats, and Ellen detailed the board scheme. Carl's claim of helping fell apart when the doorbell video showed him grabbing Laura. The jury didn't flinch. Nancy and Carl were convicted of fraud, trespassing, and stalking. The HOA was dissolved, fined, and barred from our property without notarized consent. We got $80,000 in damages. The neighborhood changed. At a block party, we celebrated with a new blue fence and a sign, private property. No HOA. Trespassers will be flipped. Neighbors opted out, shared stories, and embraced their freedom. Mia, smiling again, asked if Laura could teach her judo. Next Saturday, Laura said, flexing. The fight wasn't just ours, it was the neighborhood's. We won because we stood firm, gathered proof, and found allies like Ellen. Our home was ours, and no one would take that away. What do you think? Have you faced bullies like this HOA, or seen injustice in your community? Was Laura right to use force, or should she have waited for the law? Share your thoughts below. Let's talk about standing up to power and where you draw the line.